9 years vanish when you see someone's face twist like that, when laughter turns into a stunned silence that cuts through the entire room. I was standing outside the coffee shop, watching her from the sidewalk like some stranger spying through the glass. Clarissa was there with her friends, head thrown back, that wide laugh she only used when she was trying too hard to look carefree. And then she saw me. She just stopped. It was like the whole world slammed on the brakes. Her hands froze mid-gesture, the smile drained from her face, and I swear I saw her pulse hammering in her neck. She looked at me like I wasn't her husband, like I was someone she never thought she'd have to face again. My heart dropped because I recognized that look. Panic. The kind of panic you see when someone's secret is seconds away from being dragged into the light. I didn't go inside. I couldn't. My legs turned to stone as I realized how alien the entire scene felt. She was leaning across the table toward some guy who clearly didn't belong there. He wasn't just a friend, and I didn't need anyone to tell me that. The way she moved around him, the subtle tilt of her body, the quiet glow in her face. I hadn't seen her like that with me in years. And that's when my stomach twisted. Maybe she didn't even know I was coming. Maybe she didn't care. I walked away before my brain could process the flood of questions drowning me. I didn't want to see more. I didn't want to watch her touch his hand or hear that laugh again, knowing it wasn't for me. I just left, like a ghost drifting down the street, pretending I hadn't seen my entire life crack open in broad daylight. That night, she came home smelling like the same coffee shop. I could still picture the steam rising from her cup, the way the sunlight caught her hair. And yet, when she walked through our front door, she acted like nothing had happened. She hugged me, kissed me, smiled like she'd just been with her girlfriends all day. She didn't know I'd seen. Or maybe she did, and she was testing how much I'd tolerate. I sat there, numb, nodding along as she told me some nonsense story about a long chat with Madison, when I'd watched her laughing with him, the stranger who didn't belong. That's when I realized something I'd never been willing to admit. Clarissa's world might have gone on without me a long time ago. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there next to her, staring at the ceiling while she breathed softly beside me, her hand resting on her stomach like nothing was wrong. I kept replaying that moment in the coffee shop, her frozen face, the way her friends stopped laughing when she saw me, and that guy smirked like he knew something I didn't. I wanted to wake her up and scream, "Who the hell was he?" But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I stared into the dark and listened to the quiet hum of our house, feeling like a stranger in my own bed. The next morning, she was all sunshine and fake warmth. She made pancakes. Clarissa never makes pancakes. She was humming while flipping them, talking about a girls' trip next weekend with Madison and Paige, how they wanted to do some wine and spa thing. She looked me right in the eye when she said it, and for the first time in 9 years, I could hear the lie in her voice. It was in the pause between her sentences, in the way she avoided blinking too long. And it hit me. I've been blind. I tried to play along. I asked harmless questions, testing her. "Where are you going exactly?" She said, "Just somewhere near the lake. You know, that resort Madison loves." I smiled, but inside I was falling apart. I knew Madison didn't even drink. That day at work, I couldn't focus. My emails piled up while my mind kept spinning around the same thought. Who was that guy? I started scrolling through her social media, something I hadn't done in years because I trusted her, or maybe because I didn't want to see what I'd find. There wasn't a single post with him, but I noticed something strange. Last month, she started liking photos from some account I didn't recognize. It wasn't a friend, not even someone local. Just random pictures of hikes, fancy dinners, sunsets with captions like, "Sometimes the best moments are the ones you don't share." That night, I asked her about the coffee shop. I tried to sound casual, like I wasn't breaking inside. "How was your day yesterday? Madison and Paige must have been good company, huh?" She didn't look up from her phone when she answered. "Yeah, we had fun. Just girl talk, nothing special." Her tone was flat, rehearsed. And then, without thinking, I said, "What about the guy?" The way her head snapped up. I'll never forget that. Her face went pale, her lips parted like she'd forgotten how to speak. "What guy?" she asked too quickly. My throat tightened. "The guy at the table with you. The one you were laughing with." She blinked, once, twice. "Oh, him? He's just a friend of Madison's. We all bumped into each other. It's nothing, Lenny. You're overthinking again." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And here's the thing. I am an overthinker. I know that. I've always been the guy who worries too much about nothing. But this time, I could feel it in my gut. Something was wrong, and it was bigger than a coffee shop meeting. I didn't push her right then, though. I just nodded, smiled back, and let her think I believed her. But when she went to bed that night, I stayed up, scrolling through my phone with my heart pounding. I found myself on that stranger's Instagram page again. One picture caught my attention, a shot of a latte, posted the same day I saw her. The caption said, "Some moments are worth the wait." And in the reflection on the coffee cup's surface, I swear I could see her. I couldn't shake that image from my head. The reflection of her face on that stupid latte. It was blurry, distorted by the foam and the angle, but I knew it was her. That was the exact sweater she wore that day, the cream one with the loose sleeves she said made her feel cozy. My hands trembled as I zoomed in on the picture, over and over, like I was some detective piecing together evidence in the middle of the night. I even screenshotted it and stared at it for so long that my phone screen dimmed and forced me to tap it back awake. My heart was racing like I was caught doing something wrong, but this was my life, my marriage. I had every right to know. The next morning, I pretended everything was fine, but I could barely look at her. She was brushing her hair in the hallway mirror, humming softly, like she didn't have a care in the world. I wanted to scream, "Who is he? What are you hiding from me?" But the words stuck in my throat. I'm not the guy who fights. I'm the guy who apologizes even when I'm not wrong. The guy who lets things slide just to keep the peace. And maybe that's why I'm here now, feeling like the biggest fool alive. Later that day, I called Madison. Yeah, I did something I've never done before. I called her best friend. My voice cracked when I said, "Hey, just wanted to ask about that coffee shop hangout. Was it fun?" Madison hesitated. There was a pause that lasted a fraction too long before she said, Yeah, it was great. Clarissa needed some girl time. You know how it is." Something in her tone felt off, like she was performing for an audience. My stomach dropped. So, I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I checked Clarissa's phone when she was showering. My hands were sweating like I was defusing a bomb. She's never been careless with her phone. Always face down on the table, always a little too close to her at night. But I knew her passcode. It hadn't changed in years. I opened her messages, praying I was wrong, praying I wouldn't find anything that would make me regret this. And at first, I didn't. Then I saw a text thread labeled with just a single initial, C. My blood ran cold. I opened it. There weren't many messages, but the ones there, they didn't read like a friend talking. The last message was from the day before. Had a great time. Wish we had more days like this. You looked incredible. She had replied with a heart emoji. Just a heart. But it was enough. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I'd be sick. When she came out of the shower, I couldn't even look at her. She was smiling, asking if I wanted tea. I mumbled something and left the room. That night, I sat in my car outside our house, staring at the steering wheel, wondering if I was about to ruin everything, or if it was already ruined. The worst part? I'm not even sure I want the truth. Because what if the truth is that I've been living in a lie for years? What if I've just been the guy she settled for, the safe choice, while someone like this guy makes her feel alive? I told myself I wasn't going to do it. I'm not that kind of guy. I've always believed that if you have to spy on your partner, the relationship is already dead. But here's the thing. When you feel that knot in your gut, that slow burn of dread that won't let you breathe, you either face it or you drown in it. So I faced it. On Friday night, she said she was meeting Madison for a late dinner. She kissed me on the cheek, slipped on her coat, and gave me that practice smile, the one I used to believe was just for me. I waited 10 minutes after she left, my hands shaking as I grabbed my keys. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to see for myself. I followed her car from a distance, trying to keep calm while my heart thudded like a drum. She didn't go toward Madison's place. She didn't even head to a restaurant. Instead, she drove across town to a street I didn't recognize, parking near this quiet wine bar with dim golden lights spilling onto the sidewalk. I pulled over 2 blocks away and watched from the shadows like some pathetic detective in a bad movie. When she stepped inside, he was already there. The guy from the coffee shop. He stood up when he saw her, smiling like she was his favorite person in the entire world. I felt my chest cave in. The way she looked at him, it wasn't the look of someone catching up with a friend. It was something softer, more alive. She touched his arm as they laughed, leaned close when he whispered something. And just like that, 9 years of my life felt like a joke. I don't know how long I sat there watching them through the glass. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't look away. Every smile she gave him was like a blade twisting in my gut. And yet, part of me needed to see it all. I needed proof. When she tilted her head back, laughing at whatever story he told, I remembered the last time she laughed like that with me. It was years ago. Maybe I lost her back then, and I was too blind to notice. After an hour, they left the bar. I ducked down in my seat, watching as they stood by his car. He handed her something, a gift bag. She looked surprised, then hugged him. Not a quick, friendly hug. The kind where you close your eyes and hold on just a little too long. My throat tightened, and I felt something inside me snap. I drove home before she did, parked my car in the driveway, and sat there in the dark like a coward. When she came home half an hour later, she smelled faintly of wine and perfume. She kissed me like nothing had happened. I almost laughed in her face. Instead, I asked how her night with Madison was. She smiled and said, "It was great. Just what I needed." I went to bed that night with a storm raging inside me. I don't know if it was anger, heartbreak, or just exhaustion from pretending not to see the truth. But I do know this. I can't sit here anymore, waiting for her to hand me lies like they're little gifts. If she's hiding something, I'm going to rip it out of the shadows. I spent the whole next day trying to come up with the perfect way to confront her. I must have rehearsed 100 scenarios in my head. How I'd start, whether I'd shout or just quietly lay the evidence in front of her and watch her face crumble under the weight of the truth. But every time I tried to picture it, I froze. Because as much as I want answers, part of me is terrified of what she'll say. What if she looks me dead in the eye and says, "Yes, Lenny, I've found someone better. I haven't loved you for years." I don't think I'd survive hearing those words. By Sunday afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. She was in the kitchen making tea, scrolling on her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. I just stood there, watching her, every little detail of her movements making me angrier. The way she hummed, the way she smiled at something on her screen. Was it him? Was she thinking about him while standing right there, in our home? I almost blurted everything out, but my voice cracked before I could form the words. Instead, I grabbed my coat and told her I needed to clear my head. I left without waiting for a response. I drove aimlessly for an hour before parking near that wine bar. I needed to know if it was a one-time thing or if she had been meeting him behind my back all along. I sat there like an idiot, staring at the doorway, hoping she wouldn't show up. Because if she did, that would be the end, wouldn't it? My whole life would just unravel. But she didn't come. The guy didn't come either. All I saw were strangers going in and out, laughing, living their lives while mine felt like it was cracking in two. I went back home late, and she was already asleep. Or at least, she pretended to be. I could hear her breathing change as I walked into the room. It wasn't the slow, steady breathing of someone in deep sleep. It was too controlled, like she didn't want to talk to me. Or maybe I'm just imagining it. I laid down next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling this gnawing pit inside me grow bigger. 9 years, and I don't even know if I'm sleeping next to a stranger. The next day, something inside me shifted. I decided I was done waiting. I needed proof, something undeniable. I called in sick at work and spent hours going through her laptop, her drawers, anywhere I thought she might be hiding pieces of a double life. For a while, I found nothing, and I almost convinced myself I was losing my mind. Then I opened her email. There it was. A confirmation for a hotel booking next weekend. Under her name. A room for two. My hands went cold as I stared at the screen, rereading the words over and over like they might magically change. It wasn't just a quick meetup or a harmless friendship. This was planned. This was deliberate. And I had no idea how long it had been going on. When she came home that night, I felt like I was living in a movie. She kissed me on the cheek, smiled, and asked how my day was. I forced a smile, even though my entire body was shaking. I wanted to shout, "Who is he? What are you doing?" But I didn't. Not yet. Because now I had a plan. If she was going to this hotel, I'd be there too. I spent the entire week suffocating under the weight of my own thoughts. Every time she smiled at me, every casual kiss, every little question about dinner plans, it all felt like a performance, like I was watching a stranger wear my wife's face. I kept going back to that hotel confirmation email. The date burned into my mind like it was carved there with a knife. Saturday. Room for two. A reservation under her name, with the same credit card we share for our household bills. She wasn't even trying to hide it. Maybe that was the worst part. This quiet, smug confidence that I'd never notice. That I was too weak or too blind to ever find out. By Friday night, I had everything planned. I told her I had to work over the weekend, some last-minute reports for my boss. She didn't question it, didn't even look up from her phone when she said, "That's fine. I'll probably just have a quiet night in." I almost laughed out loud. Quiet night in? She couldn't even look me in the eye. I wanted to call her out right there, just to watch her mask slip, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I confronted her now, I'd have nothing but her denials. I needed to see it with my own eyes. On Saturday, I followed her again. I parked a few blocks away and watched as she left the house, dressed nicer than I'd seen her in months. Her hair was curled, her makeup subtle but perfect. She didn't look like my wife running errands. She looked like a woman heading to meet someone who makes her feel alive. My stomach churned as I trailed her car to that hotel. The place was nicer than I expected, one of those boutique hotels with warm lighting and soft jazz humming from the lobby. She walked in like she belonged there, and I stayed outside, gripping my steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. I waited. 10 minutes passed. 15. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I needed to know who she was meeting. I couldn't just sit there while my entire marriage burned down around me. I left the car and walked into the lobby, pretending I was just another guest. The receptionist gave me a polite nod as I sat on a bench near the elevators, trying to look casual while my insides were screaming. Then I saw him. The same guy from the coffee shop, the same smug face I'd memorized from that night at the wine bar. He walked in like this was just another Saturday, holding a small gift bag, and I swear I wanted to run up and rip it out of his hands. Instead, I just sat there, numb, as he smiled at the receptionist and went straight up to the elevators. Minutes later, I saw her enter the same elevator, and the doors closed between us like a final curtain. I thought about following them, about barging in and catching them in the act. But I froze. I just stood there, staring at the closed elevator doors, realizing I didn't know if I wanted to see what was behind them. Because once I saw it, there would be no going back. I went back to my car and sat in silence for an hour. My hands were shaking, my mouth dry, my chest aching like I'd run a marathon. I could still see them together in my mind, laughing, touching, sharing something that used to belong to me. And that's when I realized something. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I had to know. I had to end this. I walked back inside, straight to the front desk, and asked the receptionist what room Clarissa was in. She looked confused, hesitant, but I gave her my last name and told her I was her husband. After a pause, she told me the number. My legs felt heavy as I climbed the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Every step felt like I was walking toward the edge of a cliff. When I reached the hallway, I stood outside that room for what felt like forever, listening. I couldn't hear anything, no voices, no movement. I raised my hand to knock, but my heart stopped. What if she opened that door and I saw everything I feared? I didn't knock. Not yet. I walked away, my fists clenched so tight they ached. I needed a better plan. I needed to see more than a closed door to know the truth. I drove home that night with my head spinning, my body vibrating with this strange mix of rage and exhaustion. I didn't even remember the drive itself, just flashes of traffic lights and my white-knuckled hands gripping the steering wheel like I could crush it. I sat in our driveway for nearly an hour, staring at the front door, thinking about the fact that she'd walk through that same door tomorrow, smiling, pretending nothing happened. I couldn't bear the thought of hearing her voice, asking me how my day was, while the image of her stepping into that hotel room with him carved deeper into my skull. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat at the kitchen table, just me and the hum of the refrigerator, going over every single moment from the past year, looking for signs I missed. Was it the way she started dressing up more? The way she began working late? Or suddenly having these weekend spa trips with Madison? How many lies had I swallowed without even realizing? My mind was on fire, burning through memories and leaving me with nothing but ash and doubt. The next day, I decided I wasn't going to be passive anymore. I'm not proud of this, but I went to the hotel again, early in the morning. I walked right up to the receptionist and told her I needed an invoice copy for my wife's stay, that she'd accidentally deleted her confirmation email. I thought for sure she'd refuse or ask too many questions, but she didn't. She just printed out a receipt, handed it over, and went back to her work like this was nothing unusual. My hands trembled as I read the details, her name, the room, the check-in and check-out times. 2 guests. It was all there, black and white. I stared at that piece of paper in my car for what felt like forever, my chest tight, my breathing uneven. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was real. My wife, my Clarissa, the woman I'd loved for nearly a decade, had booked a hotel room with him. I don't think I've ever felt so small in my entire life. It was like the ground had been pulled out from under me, and I was free-falling with nothing to grab onto. When I got home, she was already there, sipping coffee at the kitchen counter like nothing had happened. She smiled when she saw me, her face lighting up in that way that used to make me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. But now, I saw something else behind that smile. I saw calculation, a mask, a performance. I stood there, holding my keys in one hand and that hotel invoice in the other, and I wanted to slam it down on the table and watch her face crumble. But something stopped me. I realized I didn't just want to confront her. I wanted her to confess. I wanted her to look me in the eye and admit everything without me having to prove it. So I played along. I asked her about her night, about Madison. She told me some story about watching movies and drinking wine, her voice smooth, her face calm. Not a single crack in her act. I almost admired how effortlessly she lied to me. But I couldn't take it anymore. That night, when she was asleep, I packed a small bag and left the house. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed space, air, somewhere that didn't smell like her perfume or feel like our fake, fragile life together. I ended up in some dingy roadside motel, lying on a bed that smelled like bleach and cheap air freshener, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed with her texts. "Where are you? Is everything okay?" But I didn't respond. I couldn't. That's when the thought hit me. If I didn't face her now, I'd drown in this. I needed to end it, one way or another. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just scared of losing her. I was scared of what I might say or do when I finally saw the truth staring back at me. I drove back home the next morning with no plan other than to finally face her. My chest was tight, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel, and my mind raced with 1,000 ways this could end, most of them bad. But as I parked in front of our house, I felt this strange calm settle over me, like I'd already been through the worst of the storm. Whatever was going to happen, I'd face it. I couldn't keep drowning in silence. She was sitting on the couch when I walked in, her face pale and her eyes red like she'd been crying all night. I think she knew. Maybe she'd sensed it coming, the weight of all the lies pressing down on both of us. "Lenny," she said softly, and for a second I almost broke. There was something so raw in her voice, like she'd finally run out of walls to hide behind. I sat down across from her, the hotel invoice in my hand. I didn't throw it at her or shout. I just placed it on the table between us, and we both stared at it like it was a bomb. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice low but steady. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks, and for a moment, I thought she was going to tell me everything I feared. But then she said something I never expected. "He's my brother's best friend. He's been helping me plan something for us." I blinked, confused, my anger faltering. She took a shaky breath and pulled out her phone, showing me messages I hadn't seen, photos of a reservation for our anniversary, details about some surprise trip she'd been planning. That wine bar. She'd been asking him for advice on places I'd like. That hotel? She'd booked it for a surprise weekend getaway for just the two of us. I felt like an idiot. No, worse than that. I felt small, ashamed, and utterly overwhelmed by the realization that I had built this mountain of suspicion in my head, brick by brick, without ever giving her the chance to explain. She reached for my hand, her voice trembling. "Lenny, I knew something was off between us. I wanted to do something special, something to remind you that I still love you. But you've been so distant, and I thought maybe I was losing you." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I broke down, right there on the couch, all the anger melting into regret. I told her everything, the coffee shop, the nights I followed her, even the way I went through her phone. I expected her to be furious, to tell me I'd ruined everything. But she just cried and held me like she hadn't in years. That night, we talked for hours. Not just about the last week, but about everything. Our marriage, how we'd stopped really seeing each other, how life had become routine and heavy. It was raw and painful, but by the time the sun came up, something between us had shifted. We weren't perfect. We weren't magically fixed. But for the first time in years, I felt like we were on the same side again. 2 days later, she took me to that hotel. It wasn't a secret rendezvous with someone else. It was a beautiful, quiet escape just for us. We laughed, we argued, we cried, and we remembered what it felt like to actually hold each other without all the walls we'd built. 9 years isn't a small thing. It's a lifetime of moments, some good, some ugly. But sitting there with her, drinking coffee on the balcony of that hotel room, I realized something that felt almost like redemption. I'd nearly lost her because I stopped believing in us. And somehow, through all of this, I'd been given another chance to make it right.